Great, thanks all. Great to be here, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity and the privilege to be in front of such amazing inventors, and those of you who have the courage to really take this path. It's a very courageous path, and I don't think we have enough people in Sri Lanka who are doing what you guys are doing. So I really want to kind of congratulate you, all of you, for taking this path. So very briefly, I'm going to just share a few thoughts and kind of our experience of how we look at the overall funding cycle and kind of what are the options are. And I'm going to hopefully try and get the words right. But I think as people think about funding, and one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, or misbeliefs that people have when they think about trying to start their own company. And first of all, even before I get to that, I think the distinction has to be made between invention and innovation. Invention is clearly coming up with something, and I forget the exact definition of this, but in a sense, it's coming up with a cool idea, something that does something really nice and cool. It's a prototype. It kind of solves a unique problem in one instance, right? I'm sure there's a better definition of this, but it hasn't necessarily provided a monetization capability. You haven't figured out a way for this to be scalable, for it to get in the hands of a consumer on an ongoing basis, and being able to have it sustained in terms of making money. That process is really what commercialization or really innovation is kind of spoke of, right? So in that journey, when a lot of people are thinking of doing that, whether it be like you guys coming up with real tangible inventions, or whether it be just concepts like what Yasas and his team did about, hey, coming up with a new service to address a market. One of the biggest misbeliefs that people have is that funding is a problem. A lot of people think as cash or access to funds as one of the biggest deterrents or the obstacles that they have. And I think, over a bond, just in the world itself, I happen to work for a strategic consulting firm based out of the US. We help private equity firms invest in companies. So not even in Sri Lanka, but globally, there is far more money and funds available than there are investable ideas. And I want to make the distinction, investable ideas. There's tons of ideas, but there's a big distinction between an idea and an investable idea, right? And that's kind of the process of what we're talking about. Now, in doing that, so the first myth to get over is that it's not a lack of funding. There is funds. There is enough of money around to be put to work for good investable ideas. And I think in doing that journey, as an entrepreneur, as an inventor like yourselves, you need to be well aware of what are your options of how you go about doing this. So one of the first means, and you've already kind of started on that path, is called sweat equity, right? What sweat equity means is you are working. Now you yourself, rather than getting a salary, or even if you're doing this on a part-time, there's opportunity costs. Without you getting paid for the service, you're willing to put your ideas and your effort and your time towards starting a product or creating a company, right? Now that can be extended. So if you think about, as an example, you have a great idea, you're very technical, and you've been able to come up with a cool invention. But you need to be able to, let's say in the first phase, you want to get to 100 clients. Small prototype, right? You want to kind of make sure, can 100 people buy this? Or let's say, hey, you figured out the technicality, but you want to be able to put a nice packaging or a wrapper around it, right? One of the first things that people think about is, oh, I need money to be able to put this package and to go do it. Another alternate or an option is, can you go to a person who already does this and have them believe in your idea, in your concept, and offer them up equity of your company so that they come join hands with you and they're willing to provide their service, their time, or their capabilities to actually create that. And that's typically your first round, you think, and that's usually referred to as sweat equity, right? So individuals are coming in and they're willing to, or kind of you get people to kind of work for you without you having to pay for that. And that actually is a great validation before you go to a person to ask for capital equity, because that shows that you have convinced another person from a different domain that your idea or your invention has legs, that it has something really tangible to go forward. So the more people who believe in this, the better it becomes, right? So that's one, and in many ways you've already done that. You've done that with your own sweat, right? So that's first capital that you put in. You can extend that same thing to other people and things that enhance your services, right? So you could extend that even to a salesperson, right? You don't necessarily have to pay a salesperson. You could tell a salesperson, hey, I will give you some percentage. It could be on success fee. If you have a really good product, you can say, hey, you know what? You work on commissions. You sell it and make it happen. So generally, I want to kind of, a lot of people, when they come to us, they necessarily haven't exhausted or looked at all these different options before they come to pure equity investment, right? So I want to kind of run that. The next thing is, obviously, you want to kind of go extend this to friends and family. And that's typically how people do that. You kind of, it's very important that, and the term is called skin in the game, right? Have you committed yourself? If it's an idea that you're willing to take forward, it's important that you have proven and you've shown that you're willing to put a large part of your savings, that you're betting on this, right? And then if you can go and if you happen to be from a group of friends or from a family or people that you know that have some funds available, and if you can convince them, and typically it's easier to do that, right? Because there's some element of where people might not even understand your product or your invention, but they will believe in you, right? So they might not understand your technology, they might not understand the market, but if they believe in you as a person who will deliver no matter what, you're looking for that. That's an important element because you're building trust and you're having another person commit in cash on the credibility of you as an individual, if not even the idea. And that's another thing to really get down, right? Because that also, number one, gives you the required capital, but even if it's not just more than the capital, it kind of showcases to the next level before you go. I've been able to get people to validate me and put their money where their mouth is, if you like, in terms of belief in me as an individual, right? So that's another second element that you need to do. Third element, I think, is about how do you get mentoring and guiding, right? So, and sometimes even in terms of opening your networks, right? So say you want to sell into a location, if you want to get a sales partner, if you want to kind of go into another location, say you have an invention, you want to potentially sell into India, you could deploy the same process. You could look for alternate means. You can figure out who has the most amount of networks or connections into the market that you're trying to sell into, and discuss with them some arrangement where they have some share in your company. And that kind of gets commitment, right? So rather than them being just on a pure sales commission basis, if you could get them commit to some level of equity share where you kind of strengthen your overall holding as a company. So those are just, I think even before you come to asking for money as equity into the company, other different means that are available that you should look to explore, exploit, and really consider. When it finally comes to, I think, the next first round, obviously when you go to kind of an unknown, beyond friends and family, asking for money for your part, that's where angel investing comes in, right? And I think you kind of got a sense of the characteristics of what it is for angel investing, but to put it simply, I think it's a lot of us, at least from the land perspective right now, and this is true across almost all angels that we've also had the opportunity to kind of go and attend Asian Business Angels Forum just last year. It was very encouraging to see that this notion of angel investing is fast growing. It's becoming a phenomenon across US. Just to give you some sense, in US, angel investing, there are 250,000 registered angel investors. And the angel investments made, I forget the exact amount, Eric, was it something like 20 billion? I forget the exact number, but the takeaway was that the amount of funding done by angel investors equaled the amount of investing done by institutional funds like the private equity and the venture capital. So it's something that's really fast growing and it's becoming a phenomenon, right? And the good news about angel investing, I think by and large, is that the biggest difference is that they're willing to take more risk. They come in at a smaller, typically you're expecting a smaller chunk of funding. They won't have as deep pockets in the first round. But actually that's good because what they do is they de-risk you. The real value of an angel investor is that it helps you kind of de-risk your product and your go-to strategy and your go-to-market strategy, because they're going to ask some very basic questions. Their horizon is going to be about, okay, in the next year, how do you kind of achieve your target? So if you take the example of Lanka BPO, if they came back and said we need 12 million to get to 150 million a year by 3 years, as Prajit kind of alluded, the conversation will be, okay, that's great. Let's break this down. What is your first year need? How do you get from 8 clients or 10 clients to 200 clients? What is that journey? What do you need immediately to make that happen, right? So, and beyond the money, really what you start exploring, and when you're looking for funding, and one thing that I advise you is when you're looking for angel investors who you want to get on board, there's a notion of smart capital, right? There's a saying that money is cheap. And what that means is that actually there's a lot of cash out there, but what you want in your first round of investing is beyond just the monetary value of someone making the investment, is someone who's actually going to either provide ability to open up doors. So in your context, let's say you are creating a product in the manufacturing space, right? You have a, let's assume that you are making a product or innovation in the apparel, within the apparel sector. The smart thing to do would be to get an investor who already has deep connections and credibility within the apparel sector, and who can take you to MSN, Brandix, and really kind of knock down doors at the highest level. That the 10 million or the 2 million rupees you get from that person is far more valuable than 2 million from someone who owns a car sales, as an example. Right? I mean, there is a lot of money. If you think about the amount of cars that are on the road right now, everyone seems to be driving a car that's more than 10 million rupees. So there is money. Right? But it's important that when you go and ask the money, that you're asking money from someone that actually is beyond just the cash, but also has a very strategic alignment to what you're trying to do. Right? So whether it be from opening doors, whether it be someone who has technical depth. So some people would have done the same thing. Either they can open up doors for you for clients, or they have technical expertise, or just basic business acumen. Right? They have credibility. They know how to take a product from concept to reality. So always have a good reason when you look at people who are willing to give you money. I think it's very important that you also are very smart about who you accept money from, and that you're kind of evaluating that with the filter and the criteria, saying beyond just the money, just because I need money, let me not accept money from anyone, but does this individual have a good reason as to how they're going to add value? Right? So that's just something to look out for when you do angel investing. Also very important to keep in mind that when you're pitching, there are certain companies that are termed lifestyle businesses, right? So what does a lifestyle business mean? Lifestyle business means that you can make a decent living by creating something. It's not going to grow rapidly, and it'll get to a certain point. Let's say you can get to making 500,000 rupees a month within 1 to 2 years, and that's pretty much it. You can continue to make 500,000 rupees for the next 10 years or eternity, right? That's a good business. That's a great business. I think, for someone who's at the point of making 25,000 rupees potential right now, you've done phenomenally well. But the ability it's hard for someone from an external perspective to be able to come be part of that journey, because there isn't a clear exit. Because the intention of an angel or anyone else from outside coming in is to be able to kind of have a shot. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that we invest in will give that. It's a portfolio analysis, right? So if when I put in money individually, I spread my risk. So if I spread money across 10 companies, rule of thumb is typically you're hoping that at least 1 or 2 will give you a 10x return. Chances are that there'll be another 5 or 6 that hopefully return the money that you put in. And there'll be the rest that you completely lose altogether, right? But hopefully the 1 or 2 that gave you the 10x overall kind of takes your portfolio that you made more than 3x of your whole investment. That's kind of the rough thinking that each one has, right? But on every investment, you are expecting to see at least a 5x or whatever difference, right? So whether it's 3x or 5x, rule of thumb is you're typically looking at a multiple of 3 times. If I put 100,000, I'm hoping that I can make 300,000 northwards in 3 to 4 years. Rule of thumb. So that can only happen if your business is growing and has the potential to grow at a rapid pace. So again, very important to look at it from that perspective. And quite often people are coming and saying it's a great business. It solves a certain need. It can have potential to get to a significant amount of monthly revenue, but it stagnates after that. And it doesn't allow for exploited growth, right? So you have to be able to make that distinction. And in those cases, angel investing typically won't be the way to do. You have to then probably look at more of a leveraged kind of equity management, right? So you go ask for a loan, or it's an interest-based thing. You can ask for a debit note. You'll say, hey, listen, I'll pay you 15% interest for the next 2 years. And that's a different mechanism of funding. But I just want to kind of make the distinction that there are certain businesses that are actually investable versus other businesses that are not. And then, beyond that, the way that the angel investors are looking to make the exit is, and it ranges from place to place, but as I said earlier, the intention for angels is never to own your company. That is never the idea. In many ways, I think it's said that angels are trying to fundamentally live vicariously. What that means is they're trying to relive what they might not have been able to do when they were young, or trying to, start a company, and they're trying to, either they've done it, and it's a drug, actually. If you do startups, it ends up being that it's something that you love doing, and you want to keep doing. So after a while, you do that for your own, and then you say, hey, I want to help others do that, and I want to relive that dream, that passion, that energy through multiple other people. So it's a very exciting thing. So I think they are looking to be part of that journey, but then also make sure that once you get to stability and you reach a certain growth, most of them are looking to then pass it on to the next level. And there are multiple ways of next level. It could be either that you could do a syndicate deal, so you could have other angel groups. So say the Lanka Angel Net Work kind of takes you from, I'm just making this hypothetically, from a 10 million rupee company a year to a 200 million rupee company a year, and you do that predominantly within your local reach within Sri Lanka. Maybe the next phase of the journey to get into a billion rupee company has to do with growing into India. So at that point, it might be that the Lankan Angel Network kind of divest, or maybe some of them might continue to stay with it, but other people might say, listen, I'm willing to sell my stake over to the Indian Angel Network, which will then kind of help you take from a $200 million company, 200 million rupee, dollar, whatever, to the billion, right? And then the chain kind of goes on. At some point, you might actually give it to a private equity, and another very viable option is to also get listed, to get public funding. So I'm not going to belabor, but I just want to kind of give you just a nutshell of different means of investing. Key points to take away is that be very smart about how you ask for money, right? The misnomer that money is hard to get is wrong. There is enough of money. It's just about how you present, and is your idea investable is an important concept. So thanks. Any questions? Actually, any specifics? Any questions? I'll be willing to take. Or next session at the end. Great. Thanks.